Hello and welcome back to Exothermic Plays Games. I'm Exothermic and the date today is Tuesday, June 25th, 2024. I've been doing a countdown of my favorite video games of all time through each day of the year, and coming in at number 190 is Final Fantasy IV. Now, I know some big Final Fantasy fans are watching this wondering how this game could possibly be in the bottom half of the year, but hear me out. It still has a lot going for it. That being said, while I have a lot to say, I've got to make it quick. He is almost here. And if you don't want to wait until the end of the video to find out what the hell that means, look in the description. This will be a very spoiler-heavy video for a 33-year-old game, so if you want to avoid those, check the description for the timestamp of my final thoughts at the end. Got it? Good? You're still here? Awesome! Final Fantasy IV opens up following Cecil, a Dark Knight of the Kingdom of Baron. He's the captain of the most powerful military branch in the kingdom, and he is our main protagonist. Despite his Dark Knight background, utilizing the powers of darkness to gain great strength from corrupted weapons, Cecil is actually an incredibly virtuous character driven by a strong sense of right and wrong. He went down this path because he felt it was the best way to serve his kingdom and the people therein. For yet unknown reasons, the king has been trying to collect all of the mythical crystals. Well, things escalated in his life, and now he's been sent out to perform genocide. Turns out, he's not about that and objects to the order. To prove his loyalty, the king sends him and Kain, captain of the Dragoons, to deliver a magical ring to a village. That went badly, and it turns out the ring was evil and they commit genocide anyways. Womp womp. The sole survivor is a girl named Rydia, who is actually a summoner, and in retaliation of the devastation of her town, she summons Titan, who causes a giant earthquake. Cecil awakes to the aftermath of the destruction and finds Kain gone. Oh no! He died! Rydia, however, remains. He takes her to safety, protecting her from more troops that Baron sends in. The true goal of Baron's assault was to kill all of the summoners, and Cecil has now officially defected from the kingdom, and your adventure begins. Said adventure kicks off with realizing Rosa, Cecil's love interest, had followed them to the village but fell gravely ill. Oh no! She's going to die! But there's a cure if you can get to the kingdom of Damcyan. Along the way, you meet Tellah, an old mage who is on his way to Damcyan to rescue his daughter, Anna, from the charlatan who supposedly seduced her, a bard named Edward. You get to Damcyan just in time for Baron to bomb the shit out of it and steal the fire crystal. Oh no! They all died! Or maybe not. You head into the castle to find Edward and a dying Anna. Tellah lays into Edward, famously calling him a spoony bard, and we learn Anna saved the entire royal family, and their love for each other was true. Tellah forgives Edward and vows revenge on the new face of the Baron military, Golbez. That bastard! Edward joins you, and you get the cure for Rosa. Rosa's back! Knowing the likely next target for the Baron military is the Kingdom of Fabul, which protects the Wind Crystal, the party sets out for there. Along the way, you meet a monk from Fabul named Yang. He rushes you to the king, and you're able to prepare for the impending assault, but it's not enough. When you're beaten back to the Crystal Room, who else but Cecil's friend, Kain, appears. Kain's back! He shows no friendship here, though, and he's prepared to kill you. Upon seeing Rosa, however, he hesitates. There's a love triangle, and by triangle, I mean depressed third wheel. Golbez sees how this affects Kain and kidnaps Rosa. Rosa's gone! That bastard! While on the chase, your ship gets destroyed by Leviathan, and Cecil washes up on the shore of the town he assaulted at the very beginning of the game. Edward, Yang, and Rydia died! Head into town and ask for forgiveness for ransacking the place like a week ago. Surprisingly, their leadership is all for it and sends you on a quest, as if you're not already on one. Joining you as totally not spies is twin mages Palom and Porom. Go to the mountaintop and pass a really vague, maybe non-existent test, and they'll forgive you. Along the way, you meet up again with Tellah, who's been doing some intense training to prepare for his inevitable clash with Golbez. Tellah's back! This is actually one of my favorite parts of the game, combat-wise, because you just have a guy floundering around with a sword, surrounded by extremely powerful mages, absolutely nuking everything. But the guy floundering around with the sword is the hero here. Anyways, pass the really vague and possibly non-existent test, and be talked to by a mysterious voice. Oh, also, you're a paladin now, because why be subtle about redemption arcs for Dark Knights? Head on back and report the news that the town's leadership already knew because Palom and Porom were totally spies. The town grants you magical passage to the Kingdom of Baron, where you find Yang. Yang's back! He assaults you though, like Kain. It turns out Golbez has been brainwashing your friends. That bastard! You knock some sense into Yang and go kill the king, who was actually dead already and replaced by an agent of Golbez. That bastard! Call yourself Luke, Han, Leia, and Chewie because those walls are closing in. In a last-ditch effort to save the rest of the party, Palom and Porom sacrifice themselves. The twins are dead! But that's okay, you had to make room for your newest member, Sid, an engineer who gives you his latest airship. We already referenced Star Wars, but get ready to live long and prosper because this ship's called the Enterprise. We run into Kain again, who tells the party that we can get Rosa back in exchange for the Earth Crystal. So naturally, we go get the Earth Crystal. It turns out the Earth Crystal was stolen by some elf dude, but in finding out more, we discover that Edward's alive! Since he can't come with us while he recovers, he gives us a special harp. Thanks, Edward. We go fight some elf dude and get wrecked. But then Edward plays his harp from his hospital bed and beats the elf dude? Thanks, Edward. Crystal in hand, we go exchange it for Rosa, but are betrayed. I'm shocked. Utterly floored. Could never have predicted. Oh, Tella's ready to mess Golbez up and drops a literal meteor on him, breaking the brainwashing on Kain. Kain's back! With Kain's help, we rescue Rosa. Rosa's back! Tella killed himself with the meteor. Tella's dead. With Kain back, he explains the whole plan that Golbez is collecting the crystals so he can go to the moon? It turns out there's 4 more crystals in the underground world, and we head down to save them. Golbez already has 2 of the 4. No, wait, they're taking the 3rd one. Golbez is kicking our ass. Rydia summons a dragon and saves us. Rydia's back! And older! Timey-wimey shenanigans and alternate dimensions. Don't worry about it. In a last-ditch effort to stop Golbez's plan, we head to the Tower of Babel, where all 7 of the crystals he's collected are stored. On the way, we try to stop the artillery, shelling the dwarven military keeping Golbez at bay, and Yang sacrifices himself to get the job done. Yang's dead! Again. Golbez still reaches us and pushes out of the tower, but we get saved by Sid. He's pushing the Enterprise to its limits, and it still might not be enough. He also sacrifices himself to save us. Sid's dead! After getting another upgrade on the airship, we head back to the underground world through a hidden back route and discover that Sid was saved by the dwarves. Sid's back! Already! We pick up a ninja named Edge and collect the 8th crystal, and Kain betrays us! Again! With no 3rd wheel and no crystal, we must go to the moon, which is far more reasonable of a request than you might ever think. We just have to summon a spaceship from the ocean. Yup. So, we're on the moon. We meet a mysterious old man named Fusoya, who explains that he is part of an advanced alien race, and so is Cecil. Yup. Fusoya joins you to stop the destruction of your world. You head back down to Earth and discover that Golbez has used the crystals to activate a giant mech. Defeat the computer controlling the mech, and Golbez fights you for the last time. I promise. Fusoya breaks an ancient curse over Golbez, and you learn that not only has Golbez been mind-controlled this entire time, he is also an advanced alien and Cecil's brother. Yup. With Golbez free, so is Kain. Kain's back! Everyone heads back to the moon to confront the actual threat, another advanced alien named Zemus. Golbez and Fusoya kill him on their own. It's easy. It's a cutscene. But then his second health bar kicks in and kills you all. You're all dead. Or not. Basically, everyone else in the game prays to grant you power Spirit Bomb style. Oh, and Yang's back. Palom's back. Porom's back. Tella's still dead. Beat the second health bar and you beat the game. You did it! Hooray! I glossed over a lot of boss battles and dungeons there, but there's a lot that Final Fantasy IV does right in that stuff I skipped, and it's worth mentioning without bogging you down in the details. This is the first Final Fantasy game with a really fleshed out cast, and focus on individual character storylines, and it's kind of the template that the franchise continues to use for decades to come. While I made fun of a lot of the twists in the story, largely in the repeated, "surprise, this character didn't actually die" trope, there's a lot of great moments to the story in this game, even if it does jump the shark at some point, especially the whole moon thing. Cecil's transformation from Dark Knight to Paladin is actually interesting when you spend more than 5 seconds talking about it, and his friendship with Kain is pretty compelling when you get to add dialogue to the mix. The cast is a little larger than it needed to be, in my opinion, but each of the characters feel pretty different from each other, and they're really fleshed out in their traditional jobs they fill. Dragoon is a very cool job, and Kain is a very cool dude, except when he's not. Now that we're done with the story, on to the... Oh no! I took too long on plot-driven events! He's here!
It's me! It's Hunter! Hi! My name's Hunter Donaldson. If you don't know who I am, I'm a podcaster that Exothermic likes, and I'm also a fan of Exothermic, so I'm very happy to be here as a guest on this episode of the show. I love this show. I love Final Fantasy IV. It's such a great game. If you want to hear us talk about it, we're going to be talking about it on Old Gamers Almanac this week, but I don't really want to spend any of my guest time here talking about Final Fantasy IV. You're going to get enough of that. It's a great game. It's a wonderful game. It's one of the best, most influential Japanese role-playing games of all time. Instead, I would like to use this time, though, to critique the list. I have a handful of games off of the list that I want to, kind of make fun of and call out and be upset about, okay? It's not all going to be nice. I also have some mean stuff to say. We're about halfway through this project. We're about halfway through the year, so it's a good check-in time. Honestly, I'd be excited to come back and critique the entire list when it's done. But real quick, let's just hammer out some of the stuff we've seen thus far on this list. So number 364 is the game Root Beer Tapper, which is an arcade game. If you haven't played it, then you better play it right now. It's too low. Guess what? That's actually too low. Root Beer Tapper should be a lot higher on the list. It's one of the greatest arcade games ever made, and super fun, and you feel its influence in all kinds of little indie fun time games. It's just got a fun control scheme. It feels satisfying to play. It's got good game feel. Number 361 is Quest 64. This episode is what turned me on to this entire series. Quest 64 is an excellent, interesting, very strange, super bad game that I think about all the time. It does not deserve to be on the list, but it does deserve to be remembered. So therefore, 361 is perfect placement. Number 351 is Hey You Pikachu. Hey You, what are we doing? Why are we doing that? What's going on? Number 295 is Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. That's really cool because that game is hard to play. So, I mean, it's kind of like a cool thing to have on a list because it's like, I got to play Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. You probably didn't. Number 287 is the game Chivalry, which is a game that for an entire summer, I played the multiplayer of that every single day, but the only rule was that I was only allowed to listen to Archie Bell and the Drells while I was doing it, and I will not expand further on what I'm talking about or what I mean. Perfect placement. 273 is Banjo-Kazooie. This was a top 10 game for me when I was a child, but I'm afraid to revisit it as an adult because I have a weird feeling that it's actually trash. Number 249 is Asteroids. That's way too low. That is one of the greatest, most important games of all time. I would bet, you know how like some lists, they'll be like, oh, Tetris is the best game, or Pong is the best game, or whatever. Asteroids has always actually been that game. It is the game that people think Pac-Man is, as far as a arcade game whose influence is legendary and is also a quality experience that will literally never die. Number 235 is Don't Starve. I think that game gets forgotten a lot. It was like one of those early kind of indie wave hits. And guess what? I think it's as good as Stardew Valley. So get in the comments. I won't be looking at them, but Exothermic can. Number 204 is Sonic the Hedgehog 2. That is messed up. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is one of the greatest games of all time. It deserves top 50 placement minimum. Otherwise, don't mention it because you're just not a cool, classy person like I am. Number 190 is, of course, this game, Final Fantasy IV. I think it's a little high. Maybe the placement is a little high. It's a good game. It's a good game. Is it top 5 Final Fantasies? Maybe not for me, but it is quite good, and it's very influential, and I love how silly it is. Last one I got to talk about is number 248. That's Final Fantasy VIII. Final Fantasy VIII is, spoilers, my favorite Final Fantasy game of all time. It's the most important one to me. It impacted me the most. It taught me that games could be weird and have numbers that don't make sense and that they could allow you to break them themselves. It is like the Minecraft of JRPGs to me, and I'm not going to explain that. It's a wonderful game. It should be number 1 on the list. How about that? Take that. It
should be number 1.
Thanks for stopping by, Hunter. Looking forward to talking more soon. And viewer, it's important to note that everything he said is wrong, except for the things that I agree with. If you want to hear the two of us hash it out for like an hour, check out Old Gamers Almanac, a podcast where they do a flirty look back at video games 30 years ago and today. Or just any game they want sometimes, like sometime later this week when I join them to talk about Final Fantasy IV, and I'll get to do the vibe check and talk about all the other great things that the game does that isn't just the story. The episode should be out some point before next Tuesday on Spotify, Podbean, iTunes, comedy clubs in Minneapolis, or probably wherever you listen to podcasts. For real though, OGA is what inspired me to do this whole YouTube channel, and if you want to listen to some really great content, check out the episodes I'm not in, which is all of them. Other than that, you can join me tomorrow as I talk about my 189th favorite game, where I break up an underground Pokemon trafficking ring.